Hi everybody. Today I'm going to go over an autumn stuffing recipe. This recipe is a recipe that my mom and my family has cultivated over the years. It's a really nice stuffing recipe. You can use it around fall, around Thanksgiving time. It's also one that you can use any old time you want. It goes great with poultry. We really enjoy this recipe a lot. It's very tasty, and I hope you'll give it a try. I hope you really enjoy it as much as we do. Okay, so conceptually this is a pretty simple recipe. You saute your base veggies, you pre-cook the crumbled sausage, you add some broth for the liquid, you're going to add your dried nuts and fruits, you add your croutons, mix the whole thing together until the croutons get all nice and moistened. You take a 9x9 ceramic pan, spray it with Pam or oil it or lubricate it, however it is you want. Pam is easy. If you have a problem with the aerosol, you can easily use olive oil or something. Take that, stick it in the oven and bake it 350 degrees for 45 minutes. Uncover the foil and then bake it for another 10 minutes just to get the top to be a nice golden brown. That's about it. So it's some work. It's really not that difficult, and you wind up with a really wonderful product that I think you'll really enjoy. So, real quick, let's go over the ingredients list. For the ingredients, you're going to need 3 sticks of celery chopped, 1 cup of chopped onion. I use frozen onion. I rarely chop my own onions in the house. A stick of butter, a tube of sage sausage. The sage is important. That's part of the flavoring for the stuffing. I'm going to use about 14 ounces, about 1 can's worth of beef broth. These are about twice what you really need, but we're going to use 14 ounces of beef broth, 14 ounces of chicken broth. If you'd like, you could easily substitute these for a veggie broth. I'm also using a low sodium broth here. This is one of the few times I'm going to tell you, it'll probably taste a little bit better if you use the regular sodium beef broth and chicken broth. 1 Granny Smith apple. We're going to use half a bag of, this is a 14-ounce bag of seasoned stuffing. The seasoning is also one of the ones you look for. Most of the vendors have the seasoned stuffing in a red bag. So we're going to use half of this, so we're going to use 8 ounces for this recipe. We're also going to use a 1/4 cup of chopped pecans, a 1/4 cup of currants. If you don't want to have a whole box of currants not lying around, you can easily use raisins. That'll work out just fine. And a 1/4 cup of dried cranberries. This recipe also works out great. You can totally prepare this and make it the day before. Take your casserole dish, let it cool off, cover it, stick it in the fridge, and then just warm it up the following day. And you can save yourself a lot of time on, Thanksgiving Day or meal preparation the day before. It also freezes very well. You can always throw the leftovers into one of these containers or into a freezer bag, and you can eat it over the next subsequent couple of weeks, the next month or so. It freezes up and then warms back up just great. Okay, I'm going to wash off the apple. Give it a really good rinse here. While I'm here, I'm also going to get 3 stalks of celery out and get those washed up. You just pick 3 nice ones out. There's always a little dirt going on. And take like 1 drop, half a drop. Let's get a little bit of suds going on here. This is all organic, biodegradable soap. And just rinse these off really well. Okay, I'm going to chop up this apple. Now, in order to keep the apple or other kinds of fruits from oxidizing, you put them in a bowl of water, and that way it doesn't turn all brown and funky while you're working on the rest of your product. All you need to do, to prevent that from happening, is you put a little bit of lemon juice in. You just need the citric acid from it. If you don't have a bottle of lemon juice, you can throw in a couple, squeeze in a half a lemon, half a lime. You even throw some, frozen concentrated orange juice in there. You just need some kind of citric acid in the water just to keep the thing from oxidizing. So we'll throw a couple of drops in there, and we're going to chop this up. You can use kind of a haphazard chop with your apple. That way it looks a little more homemade and not all pre-processed. I'm going to discard the core because you can't eat the seeds in the apple core. There's a couple more seeds in here I got to get out. And you just randomly just go on a little bit of an angle and get these guys out of here. If you have one of those apple cores, you can use that. I think it looks a little too even for this. I want it to be a little more homespun looking. And then I just chop these guys up to relatively small looking pieces here. I leave the skin on. The skin adds color, adds a little texture, and there's a lot of nutrients that are in the apple skin. You're welcome to experiment. If you really don't like apple skin, you can always use an apple peeler to peel them up. So once I've got all these nice little strips, then I chop them up into little pieces and throw them into our lemon water here. And you just take your time, be careful. Just keep your fingers away from the knife blade if you're not real confident doing that. And you know what? If it's getting a little close, down to the edge of the piece of fruit, and you're just not comfortable getting that close to your fingers, just leave it. There's no harm in leaving a couple little big pieces like that. If you're not comfortable doing something, don't. Nobody's going to know but you. There we go. All right, you roll these around a little bit, make sure they're all wet. They got some lemon juice on them, that way they're not going to get brown on you. We'll set this aside. We're going to use this later on. Okay, while we're here, I'm going to do the celery. I cut the ends off just because they're a little funky. And then I cut the big ends off. Some people use the big ends. I do not. All right, and while we're here, I'm going to cut up the celery because we're going to use these guys in a couple of minutes. These do not have to be perfect. As a matter of fact, if they're not perfect, they actually look a little more homemade. Again, like I said with the apple, if you're not comfortable getting the knife, you don't chop a lot, you're not comfortable getting the knife that close to your fingers, you can just stop, when you get near the end. All right, so now we're going to get ready to saute up all these vegetables. Put the heat on low. On my oven, that's a 3 out of 10. And we're going to throw in a whole stick of butter. Yeah, I'm using real butter. You could probably get away with using margarine in this particular context. I'm not a huge fan of margarine, but it would work. As I'm moving around my kitchen, I'm constantly stopping to rewash my hands all the time, particularly when I'm changing from one type of food to another. Another thing I do is, just for basic kitchen safety, I don't like to leave knives sitting around. I think they're just a bit of a hazard. So whenever I get done using a big sharp knife like that, I take stock, I wash the knife off, put it in the drying thing for a second, dry it, and then put it away. And that might seem a little OCG, legitimately, but, you know, if the thing isn't out there, if it's safely put away in its knife block, it's not going to be a problem. Yeah. While we're waiting for the butter to melt, we can measure out the onions and the carrots. So the recipe's calling for a half a cup of carrots. I like to use the shredded carrot, the pre-shredded carrots right from the supermarket in the bag. It's a cheat, but it saves you a little bit of time. And honestly, I think these look a little bit better in the recipe themselves. I mean, I could always just get out a grater, buy a carrot, and grate some carrots up or chop them all up. Chopping them up on a diagonal also looks really pretty if you don't have a use for the rest of the carrots in a salad or something. But I just think visually the way these are julienned are really pretty, and it's easy. You know, you can't beat easy. One of the things I'm trying to do here in this series is have reasonably decent, good food that's not real difficult, that you can make by yourself, for yourself or one or two other people who, your roommates or a small family or whatnot. Like I said earlier in the video, I rarely chop onions. One of the tips I got from Household Hacker a while back, if you don't want to use frozen onion, is you take the onion, stick it in your freezer for 15 minutes, wait, bring it out, chop it up, and you're not going to be doing the tearing thing all over the place. So I found that to be, I've done that myself, found it to be really useful when I do use a real onion. But honestly, the frozen onions are infinitely easier. They're always there. You've always got them. And you just want to have a little bit of onion and this, that, or the other thing. You can take them out, saute the frozen chopped onions up, and just put them right into whatever you need to do. These are just really wonderful. Okay, I think our butter's melted now, so now I'm going to throw in the onions. Okay, first into the pot is the frozen onions, because they're frozen. I want to give them a chance to warm up and cook, so they need a little head start of the other veggies. Stir them around a little bit so they're even on the heat source. And cover that a little bit so it gets going. Let those onions simmer for about 3 minutes, 4 minutes, just until they start to get clear, and they're all thawed out, they're clear, and you can see they're starting to cook. And then we're going to add the celery and the carrots. Also, when I'm waiting in sequences like this, I do a clean as you go. If there's stuff that I know I'm not going to use for the rest of the afternoon, I pack it up and clean it up and put it away. And that way it really does save you a lot of time, because you keep cleaning up as you go and you keep putting stuff away that you don't need anymore. There's a lot less work to do when you're all done cooking and you're kind of tired. You see how these onions are getting kind of clear and they're almost translucent and they're kind of simmering a little bit. Now's a perfectly legit time to add your other veggies. So we're going to add in the carrots. Actually crumble them a little bit. Like so. And just toss in all your celery. Stir that around a little bit, make sure everybody's evenly on the bottom. And then we're going to cover it again and let that simmer for a couple more minutes until they start to soften up. In the meantime, while I get a stopping point, I'm going to stop and wash my cutting board off so I've got it all nice and clean for whatever I'm going to use it for next. Every once in a while, maybe once every minute or three, I'll lift the lid up, give this a stir, make sure everybody looks like they're moving along okay.
And this is what it looks like when it's done. Everything's sizzly. This has been about 5 or 6 minutes. Everything's sizzling, and the onions are starting to almost get like a little bit of a yellow color to them. Not really a brown. These veggies are pretty nice and soft now, so it smells good. It smells kind of like a soup, so I'm going to pull it off and put it to another container.
So now I'm going to take this and put it in a small mixing bowl and just set it aside. Alrighty, so now while your cook pot's still warm, now we're going to get started with the sage sausage. I'd also be interested if anybody wants to try substituting. I was thinking, you don't want to use meat, maybe ground portobello mushroom with some beans worked into it or something. I'd be interested in seeing what your results are like. So if you feel like talking about that, please go ahead and put it in the comments below. That would be great. One of the things you are going to have to do is you're going to need to adjust and figure out how much sage to put into the stuffing to get the sage kind of flavor. Sage is really strong, so you're going to want to start out real low and then dial it up until you get the amount that you want. So basically, we snip off the end of this guy. You want to buy the sage sausage that comes in the tube like this, because literally what we're going to do here is you're going to squeeze the whole thing out, break it apart, and just cook it up like a crumbled sausage, like ground meat. So this comes out of the tube like so. Throw that away. I'm going to stop and wash my hands again real quick. And you just take your spoon and just break up the whole tube of sausage until it looks just like little pieces of just like a plate of ground beef.
So you're just going to keep mashing at it, just breaking it apart. If you want to cheat and use the second spoon and just rip this into shreds. However you feel you can attack it. Just go to town. But it's really not that bad breaking it up.
And you just stand here and you just chop until eventually you get it broken down to really small little pieces. It's going to take you about a minute, about 2 minutes, just chopping it up.
That's what it looks like after it's all chopped up. So you can stir it and basically it just kind of looks like ground meat.
Now what we're going to do, you don't have to stir constantly, but you have to stand here and kind of keep an eye on it for a couple of minutes. This is going to take a good, 5 minutes to cook up. And you're just going to stir it occasionally. What you want to do is keep stirring until basically all the redness is all gone. And you're just starting to get a little bit of caramelization. You're starting to see just a little bit of brown on the meat. It shouldn't be gray. Some of it should be a little toasted up and be kind of brownish. And once it starts to brown a little bit, that's when you want to stop cooking it. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. While you're waiting, again, this is a good time to do a little bit of clean as you go. Stop and wash the spoon so you get all the raw pork off the spoon. I take my kitchen scissors apart, wash the kitchen scissors off, and get all the raw pork off the kitchen scissors. If you want to go the vegetarian route, like I was mentioning earlier, and you want to try a sausage substitute, my suggestion to you would be to find a breakfast sausage recipe online and work on that until you get something that you really enjoy. then you can just one for one substitute it into this recipe here. I don't think you'd be really successful if you just go, okay, I'm going to try and figure out how to make, sage breakfast sausage while trying to do this at the same time in this recipe. While the sausage is cooking, this is a great time to prep the last of the ingredients. So if you want, you can get out a couple of bowls. You can measure out your currants, the pecans, and the dried cranberries. I really like the dried fruit in my recipe. Don't be afraid to go heavy. If your quarter cup starts to creep up to a half a cup, it's going to be good. Yeah, you don't want to go light. You don't want these things to get lost in the recipe. And the pecans, a lot of folks like walnuts. If you prefer walnuts, that's great. Pecans are a little sweeter. I think they work a little bit better with the savory nature of the sage and the seasonings that are in the seasoned croutons. So I prefer to use pecans. It's one of the tweaks that we've made to it, or one of the many tweaks we've made to this recipe over the years. That's a half a cup. The recipe calls for a quarter cup. I really love the pecans, so I go heavy on those too. These are the kinds of ingredients where you really will just play around with it and adjust the recipe over time to your own personal taste. It depends on what you like. I've got a whole nother recipe for a dried apricot stuffing, where I chop up a bunch of dried apricots and use that as the fruit instead to go with like pork or chicken, and it's absolutely wonderful. So if you try this recipe out first as it is, do it a couple of times to make sure you've got it down, and then you can start to tweak it and make adjustments to whatever it is that you enjoy. If you're concerned about carbohydrates, or you're doing the low gluten thing, yeah, obviously you're using white bread here. The glucose absorption level with all of the dried fruit, some of the vegetables, and the meat protein is really going to be slowed down. So this isn't going to have a tremendous carbohydrate impact on you if you're diabetic. You can try the recipe and experiment with it with your friends to see how much it, have a small bowl and see how much it adjusts how much it moves your blood sugar. One of the suggestions, or just for culinary purposes, if you don't like using these things, you could find a really good whole grain, a pumpernickel or a marble bread recipe, chop that up and find a recipe online to make croutons with a thick, dense whole grain bread that has a low carbohydrate impact level, and use that for your stuffing recipe instead, and that might be something that will work out really well for you. At this point, while you're thinking about it, while the meat is cooking, you want to start to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Okay, I can see it's been about 15 minutes on medium heat. I've been cooking the sausage. All of the pink is long gone. The gray is pretty much gone, and what we have now is just a really, really light, almost like a toasted nut color. And it smells wonderful.
That's about what it looks like. You're starting to get, all the pink is all gone, all the gray is just about gone, and you can just see little tiny bits of caramelization, little like a brown color going on in it. Because you don't want to overcook it. You also think about it still, this is going to bake in an oven for an hour. So this is about the doneness level you need.
What I'm going to do now real quick is called blanching. Myself, my family really don't like greasy food. I'm going to take the sausage, pour it into a metal colander in the sink. I've got a garbage disposal, so I can just make the grease go right down the sink. But basically, I'm going to pour the sausage off into a colander and run some hot water over it for a minute or two just to get most of the grease off of it. People would decry that you're going to lose some of the flavor. There's so much going on with all these other ingredients and all the other contents here. You're really not going to lose the flavor by blanching the meat off real quick. And I'm going to leave some of the, I'm not going to completely clean out the bottom of the pot. I'm going to leave some of the cooked residue down the bottom of the pot for the flavor. So here's how we do it. So if I take this stuff and just dump it right into my colander, shake it out. I'll wipe this off real quick so I don't burn the grease on the side on my stove top. And we're just going to run some hot water over it for a moment. And see, a lot of that grease just comes right out of it. And that's about it. And I'm just going to hold a plate underneath the colander just to keep the drips from getting all over my kitchen. And just put this right back in there. In all honesty, you could skip this step if you really don't mind a little bit of extra greasiness to it. I think it adds some value, so this is why I still do it this way. All right. We are on medium heat. And now we're going to add a lot of the other ingredients. Okay, so first we're going to add the celery and onion mix that we reserved. That's going to go right back in here along with a lot of the butter. The Granny Smith apple that we chopped up earlier. Completely drain this, get the water out of it, and then we're going to dump these apples right in there. Like so. We're going to add our 1/4 cup of dried cranberries. Our very heavy 1/4 cup of currants. And our very half cup of chopped pecans. Give this a good stir. And now, give your boxes or your cans of broth a good shake. 1 cup each of beef and chicken broth, and like I said before, if you're trying to do a vegetarian variant, you could easily sub out a vegetable broth. Okay, so here we go. 1 cup of that. You move shallow with these because you can always add more later, but it's hard to subtract. 1 cup of beef, 1 cup of chicken. I've also tried using turkey broth. That wasn't too bad. All right, now the broth is in. Now we add the croutons. And the oven's ready. That was pretty good timing. So I'm going to call that 4 cups of croutons. And those guys go. Now what we do is we just mix this all up. And you just want to get the croutons just kind of gently moistened. This is where it's a little dicey because you want to make sure you don't have too much liquid in there and get them too soupy, but you want to have enough liquid in there to not have them be too dry. Start out, follow these, the recipe to the letter, and then if you have to, you can always splash just maybe 1/8 of a cup at a time. A little more of the broth in, or if you've gone too soupy, you can go like a 1/4 cup, half a cup, and add some more croutons in. Stir it around until you get the moisture back out. But pretty much, the measurements that I've given you are, generally speaking, pretty spot on, if I do say so myself.
This is what we're looking at right here. So there's a little bit of liquid that was down the bottom a moment ago, but the croutons are starting to just soak all that up. And you just keep stirring, get everything really nice and integrated, and give the croutons a chance to do their job and soak up all of that broth. You don't want to see them get really gluey and disappear, but you want to see them start to break up just a little bit. That means they're nice and moist. So it looks like we pretty much nailed it with this one, which is great.
So at this point, if you think about it, we have literally pre-cooked everything. Now just to make sure you get the consistency that you're looking for, I strongly suggest at this juncture you get a little bowl, get a really nice even distribution of all your goodies here, and give it a taste. Because this way you know that the croutons are moist enough. If they're really crumbly and dry in your mouth, you don't want them to be al dente. They should be nice and soft here, but they shouldn't be gushy. And that's what you're looking for with this little taste test. This came out well. The vegetables are real nice and soft. I'm happy with that. Okay, getting close to being done. Taking your 9x9 glass casserole dish. You spray this with cooking spray. Like I said before, if you don't like the aerosol cooking sprays, I understand. You could put some olive oil in there, wipe it around, you'll be fine. But you gotta just, but you have to grease it with something. You're cooking, pork meat and carbohydrates with the starches and the breads and whatnot. It's gonna stick to the side of the pan. If you don't grease it, it'll be a real pain in the neck to clean later on. This isn't even that warm at this juncture, but pick this up. You've got a helper. It might be a great time to have somebody help you. But just basically pour this out into the casserole dish. I might actually get a little bit of traction this way. You could scoop, if you don't have a helper, you could sit here and scoop all this out too. I'm just trying to be careful so I don't spill it all over the place. If you found that you made a bit much, sometimes I will run double batches of this stuff. There's absolutely no harm in going, you know what? I'm going to break this out into 2 casserole dishes, which is what we're going to do here. Take the spoon, spread that out so it's nice and even. Okay, once you've got these set up, we're going to cover both the casserole dishes with tin foil. Like so. And these are going to go into your preheated 350-degree oven for 45 minutes. I'm going to set that timer right now. And now those guys are in the oven. Now I'm going to wash all these dishes up to get everything out of the way. At this point, I haven't been doing this at a full speed. I've just stopped to do a lot of editing or whatnot. My total time is 1 hour 38 minutes. You could probably easily knock this out in under an hour because you're not sitting there trying to film this whole thing. Okay, now it's been 45 minutes. The timer just went off, and I'm going to open up the oven, pull off the tinfoil tops, and let those toast for about another 15 minutes to get a nice caramelization up on the top layer of the stuffing. They're looking pretty good. Alright, back in for another 10. Okay, set the timer for another 10 minutes, and we'll see you in a bit. Okay, it's been 10 minutes. Let's pull them out and see what we've got. There we go.
That's beautiful. Look at that.
Those are really nice.
So that's what we're looking at right out of the oven.
And now one of your favorite parts. I'm going to go ahead and taste test this guy. It's really hot right now. That is spot on. That's just so good. So, autumn stuffing, fall stuffing, Thanksgiving stuffing, dressing. You could go on for a long rant about what you want to call it. I really hope you will give it a try, and I hope that, that you and your friends and your family enjoy this recipe as much as I do. So, thanks for watching. If you would, please give me a like and a subscribe. I try to do all kinds of different things on my channel. And if you would, give me some feedback in the comments down below. If you've given the recipe a try, I'd really like to know how it turned out for you, what you think of it. All right? Thank you very much, everybody. Bye-bye.
I'm also a big believer in the overall cleanup time. One of the reasons why I do clean as you go. Because if the thing is if your project is a huge mess, it's a real pain in the neck to clean up, nobody's going to want to do it. So I gave you this little illustrated short here, just to show you, you really can knock the dishes out in just a couple of minutes, and they're really not that bad. I'll give you I'm going to do a fast forward, but I'll give you the overall cleanup time in a moment. Four and a half minutes. Dun, dun, dun. So the overall cleanup time's about 4.5 minutes. Really not that bad at all, and I'm not even really rushing.